In the brutal theater of medieval politics, few stories rival the meteoric rise and catastrophic fall of Hugh Despenser the Younger, the man who turned manipulation into statecraft and paid with a death so grisly it still haunts history. Picture England in the early 1300s, a restless kingdom, a king ill-suited for power, and a chamberlain who exploited every weakness. When Edward II elevated Hugh in 1316 to the position of royal chamberlain, it seemed an administrative footnote. Yet within weeks, Hugh transformed that modest role into absolute control of royal communication, finance, and influence. Imagine if one modern official could intercept every email, decide which ones a president read, and imprison anyone who complained. That was the scale of Hugh's grip on Edward's court. He became the gatekeeper of the kingdom, reducing proud barons to beggars for access, extinguishing their influence with petty vengeance, and enriching himself on a scale England had never seen. Chroniclers describe Hugh's vengeful memory and ruthless profiteering. Nobles left waiting months for audiences, royal pardons sold like commodities, merchants extorted with outrageous bribes. By 1322, he and his father had diverted nearly half the royal treasury into their pockets, while Edward, dependent on Hugh's companionship, looked on with affection rather than outrage. And yet, Hugh's ambition reached beyond profit. It became a crusade to annihilate anyone who challenged his supremacy, including Queen Isabella of France, the very woman who should have been his strongest ally. From this collision of arrogance and humiliation emerged one of the darkest power struggles of the Middle Ages, a tale that ended not with exile or quiet disgrace, but with an execution staged as a spectacle of vengeance so nightmarish it makes even modern audiences recoil. To understand how such extremes unfolded, we must walk step by step through Hugh's transformation from overlooked knight to England's most hated tyrant and the queen who ensured his ruin.
The turning point in Hugh's tyranny was his calculated assault on Queen Isabella, a woman whose dignity and role as mother of heirs were the pillars of royal legitimacy. Rather than tolerate her influence, Hugh stripped it away piece by piece, turning queenship into captivity. In 1324, under the pretext of Anglo-French tensions, Hugh orchestrated the simultaneous seizure of Isabella's 28 estates, worth more than many duchies combined. He then purged her household, physicians, tutors, confessors, all dragged away in night raids under false charges of treason. Even her young children were taken, distributed into households loyal to Hugh. Chroniclers describe the Queen's open, weeping in court, where none dared comfort her for fear of fines or imprisonment. At Christmas, she was seated below the salt, humiliated before foreign ambassadors. Her own letters speak of despair. I am a prisoner without walls, a queen without authority, a mother without children. Yet in his cruelty, Hugh miscalculated. Isabella was no ordinary noblewoman. She was the daughter of Philip IV of France, a monarch who had crushed the Knights Templar. Deprived of wealth, dignity, and family, she resolved not merely to survive but to avenge. Every estate stolen, every servant taken, every moment of humiliation forged her into a weapon. Hugh believed he had reduced her to powerlessness, but in truth, he had created his own executioner. When Isabella eventually allied with Roger, Mortimer, and launched her invasion of England in 1326, she carried not only political ambition but the personal fury of a mother robbed and a queen dishonored. The hatred Hugh had sown with his tyranny was about to bear fruit, and it would be harvested in the most public and unforgettable fashion imaginable. Yet Hugh's arrogance extended beyond England's borders. During his brief exile in 1321, instead of seeking quiet refuge like other disgraced nobles, he reinvented himself as a pirate lord, commanding ships in the English Channel and plundering merchants with the same bureaucratic precision he once applied to court politics. Contemporary records describe him appearing on captured decks still dressed in fine court robes. Beneath armor, inspecting cargo manifests with a clerk's eye. His fleet seized wool, wine, silver, and cloth worth fortunes, terrorizing the very merchants whose taxes had once funded his rivals. Even foreign powers took notice. Genoese envoys protested the looting of their vessels, while French diplomats condemned. A royal favorite turned sea criminal, Hugh, created bases on the Channel Islands, recruited dispossessed knights and hardened sailors, and even issued safe passage, documents for tribute paying, ships, effectively running a parallel government of piracy. Astonishingly, Edward II tolerated this, quietly allowing Hugh's depredations because every stolen pound might one day fund their return to power. Chroniclers remarked bitterly that the king's navy patrolled everywhere except where Hugh operated. What should have been disgrace became preparation. By the time Hugh returned from exile, he had not only wealth but an aura of audacity, having proven he could defy the entire kingdom and thrive. This audacity made his eventual fall all the more satisfying to his enemies. They remembered the pirate who burned their warehouses and robbed their ships, and when the chance for vengeance came, they seized it with fervor. Hugh had transformed from chamberlain to tyrant to outlaw, leaving a trail of enemies across land and sea, each sharpening the blade that would one day strike him down. The reckoning came in 1326, when Isabella and Mortimer's forces invaded England. The kingdom, exhausted by tyranny and corruption, crumbled with shocking speed. Nobles who had once cowered before Hugh now rallied to the Queen's banner, eager to erase their humiliations. Edward and Hugh fled together, but their bond, once their greatest strength, sealed their doom. Captured near Wales, Hugh was dragged to Hereford, where Isabella prepared a trial that was more spectacle than justice. Chroniclers describe the Queen seated on a dais, calm and regal, while Hugh, once the gatekeeper of all England, stood accused of tyranny, piracy, and treason. The verdict was never in doubt. His sentence was designed to erase him not just physically but symbolically, a ritual of destruction to match the depth of his crimes. Stripped naked, he was dragged through the streets, jeered by thousands, before being hanged but cut down alive. Then came the horrors that stunned even hardened medieval spectators: castration, disembowelment, the slow tearing apart of the body while Isabella looked on. His heart was cut out and burned, his head displayed on London Bridge, his body quartered and sent to 4 cities. It was not merely execution, it was public purification, an offering of justice to a nation starved of it. Children in the crowd reportedly cheered. Nobles who had once feared Hugh now laughed at his agony. The man who had once controlled every voice. To the king died with his own, screams echoing across the square. For 4 hours, England watched the destruction of a tyrant, and in that spectacle, they saw vengeance for years of humiliation and loss. Hugh Despenser's fate stands as one of history's most chilling reminders of how power gained through cruelty inevitably ends in ruin. He had risen not by brilliance or valor, but by exploiting weakness, twisting bureaucracy into a weapon, and mistaking fear for loyalty. In doing so, he created a legacy of resentment so vast that when the tide turned, no hand was raised to save him. Even Edward II, the king he had enthralled, could not shield him, for the bond between them had become the very evidence of tyranny. Hugh's death was remembered not simply as punishment, but as a cautionary performance, teaching that those who humiliate queens, plunder nations, and mock the law will themselves be humiliated, plundered, and destroyed. Medieval England called it justice. Modern readers might call it vengeance dressed as morality. Yet beneath the gore and spectacle lies a timeless truth. Power without restraint devours itself. Hugh believed he had mastered the art of control, controlling access, wealth, even the queen's children. But in reality, he had only sown the seeds of his annihilation. Isabella's triumph was not just political, but symbolic. The restoration of dignity against a man who had sought to erase it. And as his severed head stared down from London Bridge, the message was unmistakable. No tyrant, no matter how cunning or feared, can escape the judgment of a people united in rage, and a queen determined to reclaim her honor. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and share it. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments and tell us what topic you'd like the next story to be about. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Legend and Lore Stories, for more exciting stories like this.